Hello and welcome everyone. Today we're making something absolutely delicious. I apologize for that pun, but today we're making apple fritters. These apple fritters are a tasty bread-based donut. The biggest complaint I always have with apple fritters is that they never have enough apple. So this recipe is packed full of apples. For the dough you will need 1/2 cup of warm water, roughly 110 degrees Fahrenheit, 2 tablespoons of active dry yeast, 2 teaspoons of white sugar, 2 cups of flour. Bread flour or similar high protein flour works best, but you can use all-purpose flour in a pinch. 1/4 cup of sugar, 1 large egg, 2 tablespoons of lard or shortening, 1 teaspoon of salt, 1 teaspoon of vanilla, 1/4 teaspoon of mace or nutmeg if you prefer, 1/4 teaspoon of baking powder. For the apples, you will need 2 medium-sized baking apples. I am using 1 Granny Smith and 1 Honeycrisp. Any variety that holds its shape when cooked will work here. 1/4 cup of white sugar, 2 teaspoons of fresh lemon juice. This is used to prevent the apples from browning. 4 teaspoons of cinnamon, and 1 tablespoon of flour. For the glaze, you will need 2 cups of powdered sugar, 1/3 of a cup of water, 1 tablespoon of white sugar, 2 teaspoons of light or golden corn syrup, 1/4 teaspoon of vanilla, 1/4 teaspoon of salt. That may seem like a lot of ingredients, but the end result is definitely worth it. I will be using a stand mixer today, but as with previous recipes, this can be done by hand if you do not mind a substantial amount of kneading. In a large mixing bowl, or the bowl of a stand mixer, combine the 2 tablespoons of yeast, the 2 teaspoons of sugar, and the 1/2 cup of warm water. Whisk them together well and then let them sit until they are bubbly. This usually takes 5 to 10 minutes. While waiting for the yeast to bloom, combine the flour, sugar, salt, mace or nutmeg, and baking powder. Then whisk it all together and set it aside. Once the yeast is bloomed, add the shortening or lard, egg, and vanilla to the yeast mixture, and using the paddle attachment, mix on low for a couple minutes to break up the shortening or lard. Then add in 1/3 of the flour mixture and continue to mix with the paddle until the flour is fully incorporated. Scrape down the bowl and add another 1/3 of the flour. Mix again until combined. Now switch to your dough hook and add the final 1/3 of flour. Knead the dough on medium until it comes together as a smooth ball. This will take about 5 minutes. If the dough is too sticky, you can add in some extra flour, 1 tablespoon at a time. The dough should end up smooth and moist, but not sticky. Once kneaded sufficiently, move the dough to an oiled bowl and let it rise until doubled in size, about an hour. While the dough is rising, we can prepare our apples. Peel the apples and sprinkle some fresh lemon juice on them so that they don't brown. Then remove the core and dice the apple into 1/2-inch chunks. Add the apples to a skillet or saucepan on the stove. Then add the sugar. Cook on medium heat until the apples are tender and all of the liquid has evaporated. Once the apples are cooked, put them in a bowl and set them aside until they are completely cooled. You can also whisk the 4 teaspoons of cinnamon into the 1 tablespoon of flour and set it aside for later use. When the dough has finished rising, move it to a large work surface and roll it out until it is roughly 10 to 12 inches square. Next, add the apples to 1/2 of the square and then sprinkle the flour and cinnamon mixture over the apples. Fold the unappled side of the dough over, then take a very sharp knife or bench scraper and cut the apple-filled dough into finger-width strips. Once cut into strips, do the same thing again, but in the opposite direction to cut the strips into chunks. Gather up the dough chunks and continue to cut it with the knife or bench scraper, cutting it from different directions each time and gathering it up in between, until the apples, cinnamon, and dough are all well mixed together. Using floured or lightly oiled hands, roughly shape the dough into a log and divide it into 9 or 12 equal discs. Then pat the discs to make sure that they are adhered together well, and place them onto a parchment-lined baking pan. Once all of the dough discs have been prepared and placed on the pan, let them rise again until they've doubled in size. This will take about 45 minutes. Close to the end of the rise, you will want to prepare the glaze. Add the icing sugar, corn syrup, salt, and vanilla to a large bowl. Then set them aside. In a small saucepan on the stove, bring the water and white sugar to a boil over high heat. Then reduce the heat and let it simmer for 1 minute. Add this mixture to the bowl with the icing sugar and whisk until no lumps remain. If the mixture is too thick, you can add some extra water. You want the glaze to be fairly thick, but it also needs to be runny enough that any excess will freely flow from the fritters. Cover the glaze with plastic and set it aside. When your dough is nearly ready, you can heat your oil. I will be using a deep fryer for this, but you could also use a pot on the stove with a frying thermometer. Heat the oil to 370 degrees. Fry each donut until it is deeply golden brown on one side. Then flip it over and fry the other side. This will take roughly 1.5 to 2 minutes per side. I recommend using the first couple donuts as tests to verify your oil temperature is correct. If the donut cooks too fast and stays doughy in the middle, you may have to reduce the heat slightly. Inversely, if the donut ends up soggy with oil because it's taking too long to brown, you can increase the temperature slightly. Once the donuts are cooked, move them to a baking pan that has a cooling rack set on top. When the donuts have cooled just enough to be handled, dip them in the glaze and shake off some of the excess. Then place them back onto a pan with a cooling rack. Let them sit until they have fully cooled and the glaze has hardened slightly. Be sure to keep the glaze covered with plastic wrap between donut dredges and stir it well before each dunk. Here we have the finished apple fritters. These fritters are packed full of apple and cinnamon goodness and are kind of like an apple pie in donut form. I hope today's recipe has inspired you to try it out. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more, be sure to bash the like button, hit subscribe, and ring the notification bell. If you have any questions, comments, or ideas for future videos, be sure to leave them down below. Thank you very much for watching. I will see you in the next video.